Hi, and welcome to Talks with Shay. So, today I would like to begin with reading from John chapter 15 and verse 12. And it says, "This is the commandment, that ye love one another as I have loved you." So, here's a new month this month, and this month's series title is Big Heart. So, for part one of Big Heart, I would like to talk to you about God's connection. So, hello everybody. With us today we have Miss Kayla Romero. And so we're talking about this series for this month is titled Big Heart. And so who more to have a big heart than a person that does fostering, right? So today we have with us Kayla Romero, and she is a foster mom. And I asked her to come on to share her story with us because she has, y'all, a big heart. So how did you get to start fostering? Like, what happened? Where did the light bulb go off? Like, tell us your story.
That always seems like a hard question to answer. But I feel like it started I was the oldest of five kids, so I think what sparked it was I always wanted to just be a mom. And then my grandmother, she always had kids at her house. She had an home daycare. And then she would have kids like from all over the neighborhood come into the house, and I always wanted the babies, to hold the babies. And then as I got older, I just feel like I was always in places with people's children. So like when I first got married, we didn't have kids, but we lived with a family member, and that family member couldn't have kids. So they kind of fostered off record for all the children, and they always had babies at the house. And it's like the babies just kind of leached to me all the time. So like
She love babies, y'all.
yeah, I love kids. It's not even just babies.
Yeah.
But when I got married, it's like me and my husband, they used to call us the baby whisperers. Because
That's funny.
babies would always want to come with us. They would,
Aw.
if they was crying, they would stop crying when we held them, and it's just like it was just meant to be.
Yeah.
So then once we graduated high school, we had our first child. Then we had our second child 4 years later. And then at that point, my husband was like, okay, we're done. We're not having any more kids. And then 4 years later, our third kid came. And at that point, my husband was like, done, done. But I always knew I just had it in me that I wanted to. Actually, I told God, God, I don't need a mother kids from my womb. I just want a mother. It don't have to just be my own children from my womb. So at that point, my husband decided that he would tie his tubes, and we wasn't having no more kids. Well, after my third kid, at that point, oh, let me back up just a quick second. While we had our first kid, our church was going through this phase of hosting exchange students. And at this point, his mom, my husband's mom, had hosted about 10 kids at this point.
Wow.
And we was the siblings of the exchange students.
Okay.
And when we got old enough and we got our first house, we was like, well, let's be the parents of the exchange students. So then we got our first exchange student. The next year we got another exchange student.
Big heart.
And it was going great. We loved having people in our house, and we had the space, and we just loved it. Like when everybody would leave and go back home after the 8 months, it would just feel like we was missing something. So at this point, I always knew I wanted to adopt or foster, and I had already told the Lord a long time ago that it don't have to be out of my womb. I just want to mother. I have all this energy to mother, and I want to mother someone that needs a mother.
Aww.
And at this point, my exchange students left. COVID happened, and when COVID happened, and no kids could come overseas anymore. So at this point, this was the perfect timing for us to tap into foster care. And me and my husband had already talked about foster care, but we never knew when was the right timing because a lot of foster parents always feel when it's the right timing. Let me make sure I have my own children. Let me make sure my house is big enough and all those things. And of course, we decided to do this when our third child was 1.
Oh.
So we started this with 3 kids, and he was the youngest. And that's kind of just how it happened from there. We became foster parents. We just went to the class one day, and we started going to the class after work hours. So the class we went to was like at night at like 7. And my grandmother babysat our littles, and for 2 hours every day, me and my husband would meet at the place, go to the class, and it just worked out.
Aww.
And we couldn't believe it worked out. And we both had jobs at that time, so it was never going to be the perfect timing. Because now that I look back, it felt like it wouldn't have been typical to be foster parents in the midst of us both having full-time jobs. We got a 1-year-old and this, but God was like, it's in my timing.
I know that's right.
So at this point, we just kind of did it, and we just said, let's do it. And I remember going to the DCFS office, and now every time me and my husband goes now for visits with our littles that we have now, we sit on the step, because every day we would take that break and sit on that step, and we would both be, you remember? Like 3 years ago, this was us starting this process, and now it just feels normal. And ever since that, we've been foster parents, and it feels exactly like you mothering your own children. Like for us, like it doesn't feel like it's someone else's kid. And we are those foster parents that we just like to make it a big family effort. So it's like everybody on board. We still try to stay as connected as we can to the bio parents, and we just like, we just added another family member to the mix.
Yeah.
And that's just kind of us. That's how we do it. It feels good. It feels like this is what God wants. And all this time, God just kind of been preparing the table for us all this time, from my grandmother's house to kids just leeching to us figuring out we have this in us already. Let's just do it for people that like kids that need it. So yeah, that's awesome. Where that started.
So have you adopted any kids yet?
No, we are working on it actually right now, in the process of it. It's not written in stone, but if all goes like it's supposed to go, we will be adopting soon.
Okay. So about how many you think kids have you fostered in this time frame? Because what it's been, you say 3 or 4 years?
It's been about fostered? 3 years. I done lost count because it goes so fast now.
Okay.
But I feel like we've had about 10, probably over 10 kids in the last 3 years. And the longest kids that ever been with us was actually my current son that I have now, which made 2 years.
Okay.
So that's the longest a kid ever stayed in my home. And the shortest time was 4 months.
Okay.
So that a kid stayed with us. We kind of still stay connected with all the children. Like they've went home or they've got adopted, but we still have connections with where they went.
Yeah.
Or the siblings of them. We still have that connection. So I did always say, like, when I was in the process of this, like, God, I don't want to take nobody's child from them.
Right.
But I want to be a help to the child, help to the family. But if we need to create boundaries, then we would. But I want to have a heart like God, closest to God.
Yeah.
To, everybody just be happy.
Yeah.
And it just feels like
ideal?
family. I don't know how to explain it. But,
right. Yeah. That's beautiful. I love her story. I've worked with Kayla for a couple of years, and we bonded quickly, with each other. I'm going to tell you, she does a lot behind the scenes. Yeah. She's always on the go, always so willing to help a family, help bio parents, help the children. She really has like a huge heart. I've seen her take on different children and working with them, seeing change in the child like you were about to adopt. Yeah. It was a lot of change, and I think like for us sometimes that's where the people give up at. And it took time, right? You had to work with him just like your own child. You got to work with children that have behaviors, and she saw the beauty of him changing, so that in itself probably was very encouraging. Yeah, because you knew that your work wasn't in vain.
Yeah,
and
and
he
he
got
needed
to see it.
someone.
Yeah,
So it just feels good when like you're doing it, but that person needs you just as much as you need them.
that's good.
And even in the midst of it being hard, it doesn't mean just to give up.
Hmm.
And that's kind of how we are. Like I don't want to give up because we can see change already, but we just got to push through. So
And I think that's good life,
yeah,
advice just in general in life. Things get hard sometimes, but you just have to push through,
yeah,
keep going,
yeah,
and if you're set out and God has called you to do this, I always tell foster parents it's a ministry, truly,
yeah,
because everybody can't foster. God has to literally call you to do that kind of work because
yes,
it's not a fit for everybody. I've thought about it so many times, especially not being able to have children of my own. But when I look back, sometimes I'm like, I kind of like my liberty to kind
yeah,
of just go when I want and not
yeah,
have to find a
right,
babysitter and stuff like that. So I always go back and forth, but it always come back around full circle. It seemed like in my mind or whatever,
hmm,
but. If before we go, let me ask you this: if there's somebody that may be listening that maybe has thought about fostering, what would be that piece of advice that you would give that person today?
I would say I'm a very spiritual person. So if you feel God is calling you and you keep getting that tugging and everything just keep leading back to it and he just keep putting it in your heart, putting it in your heart, I would say go for it. And when you go for it, it comes with a lot of prayer because Shalonda did say it's a ministry, but when you do a ministry, you got to stay prayed up all the time.
Right?
So if you are that person that feels like you have a connection with the child, a connection with God, and you feel like you could keep doing the work and not give up, then definitely go for it. There's kids that need us. And
Yes.
although a kid may not do well with another foster parent, they may do well with you because you have that one thing that they need. So
Yes.
I would say don't go off of what other people are saying because just like if my child go to my sibling's house, one sibling may do great with that kid, with the other sibling, they like, come get your child.
Mm-hmm.
So look at it as like in foster care, where you may do awesome with this kid, or maybe this kid may not be for you, but if you keep going, you're gonna find a perfect match. Because I
Mm-hmm.
believe I always say hashtag God's connection.
I love
Because
that.
God's connecting these families together. There was so many times in the Bible where God connected people that lived on this side of the world and this side of the world, and this is how like David was born. Like if you think
Right.
about the lineage of David and where he came from Ruth and Naomi coming
Mm-hmm.
from two separate places, a
Come on
broken
now.
marriage and things like
Right.
that. If you think of all that, it's God's connection.
I like that.
So I always go back to the Bible and I'm like, God, okay, I'm looking back at these stories and I'm putting it together and I'm like, um, my story is already written there, so I just gotta keep on staying prayed up, and just raise these kids in a positive way, and I believe that it's all gonna work out.
Amen.
Yeah.
Well, we want to thank you today for taking time out of your busy schedule to just chat with us today. I appreciate you so much. And like she said, if it's a God connection, I like that. And so that's what we need to pray about because ultimately we want the will of God to be in our lives. So
Yeah.
thank you for being with us today. We love you. We appreciate you so much. So before I go, I just want to remind you, if you haven't already, check out my website at www.talkswithshay.org. You can subscribe to my videos on YouTube and find me on Facebook. Like my page, share my page, invite your friends to like my page. And until next time with Talks with Shay, Shay is out. Y'all stay blessed.